Second page. So let's go ahead and start defining these different parts of statistics of data sampling into this category or into this example. So we've got 150,000 European Union students that attend a university in the UK. So we want to estimate the average yearly expenditure of these students. A service provider plans to conduct a study by interviewing 500 of those students. So what is the population? What's the parameter? What's the sample? And what's the statistic there? So the population is the original complete picture of all of the elements, all of the people to be studied. So in this case, it is 150,000 EU students in a UK school. So that's the entire population, but we're not going to interview all 150,000 students. So we take in mind the parameter. The parameter is the scope of what we're talking about. What exactly are we trying to study here? What are we looking for here? And what we're looking for is the average yearly expenditure of the population. We want to know what the average yearly expenditure of the students are as a whole. But we're not going to look at all of them. We're only going to look at 500. So that's our sample. How do we gather those 500 students? How do we choose those 500 students? There's a lot of different ways we can do that. So our sample is the 500 students. The statistic there is that you find the average yearly expenditure of the sample to estimate for the population. We don't actually know what the average yearly expenditure is for the entire population, but we have information about 500 of those students, and we feel like we have enough information in order to then make a general consensus about what the rest of the population is experiencing. So there we go. So the second half of these notes, we're going to delve a little bit further into how do we gather data, and that's what we call sampling. The sampling process is this. It is a tried and true process that we use to sample, and it's pretty straightforward, but we've got a little diagram that kind of helps explain it. So first we have a problem, and we research that problem. We do as much research on that problem as we possibly can. We then specify what the population is that encompasses that entire problem. If we're talking about something that's going on at the school, the population will be everybody at the school. But if we're talking about just the students at the school, then we'll be talking about just the students. Or maybe we're talking about just the upper school students. Or maybe we're just talking about 12th grade students. You need to figure out what your entire population is based off of what the parameter you're looking at. Are you talking about IB results? Are you talking about food consumption at the school, which would be both the teachers and lower school and upper school and staff and administration, right? So it depends on what you're asking is what your entire population is. You then decide to choose a sampling method, and then you collect that data. So the sampling method is how many people you pick, what type of method you pick, and then after that you collect the data. Once you have all the data, what we call the raw data, so just a list of data, you take that data and you explore it. Exploring the data means that you put it into graphs. You start using calculations with it to make inferences, okay? And that's the next piece, is to make inferential statistics to draw conclusions. So you have a sample that you picked, you did some sort of experiment or gathered some sort of data on those specific samples, and then you use that sample to make an inference about the rest of the population. Once you do that, you then say, are these conditions or conclusions reliable? And then that could mean you look at whether there's a bias. You look at whether the sampling process was truly random or whether it was non-random, for better or for worse. Are the results replicable? Is something that you might have heard in science class before. Once you decide yes or no, you have to follow the following flow chart. So no, you go back and choose a different method and try again. Yes, then you can report your results. So what I have right here is a description of a dance-off. So Mr. Quelty wants to prove that he has the sickest dance moves of all of the teachers, and this is the process that he follows. What I would like for you to do for the rest of your notes today, so before you come into class the next time I see you, I would like for you, these are the 6 different points that fit into these 6 different categories. Which one of these is first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth? So for instance, let's read through this and I'll do number 1 with you. Okay. Mr. Quelty wants to prove he has the sickest dance moves compared to all of the teachers. Since Mr. Quelty is so busy being a math nerd, he only hangs out with other math teachers. So he's only going to dance against them instead of dancing against everyone at the school individually. Mr. Quelty gathered all of his data from the dance-offs, raw scores based off of cheers and audience encouragement, and after looking over his sample data, Mr. Quelty decides that he is a clear winner between his fellow math teachers. However, Virginia points out, since the math department is full of nerds, obviously we do not dance well. Virginia said that in order to have a true representation of the school teacher's dance capabilities, he would have to have different sampling technique in his data collection. So this is the event, or this is the situation that's going on. And then here are 6 different points of information that are jumbled up. So if we read through here, the data collected was not an accurate representation of the whole school. Mr. Quelty wants to prove his naysayer wrong by challenging teachers to a dance-off. Mr. Quelty was the clear winner of the challenge. Mr. Quelty was told that his dance moves were not up to par with other teachers' moves on the dance floor. Therefore, conclusions are not reliable. Mr. Quelty decided to only compete against the math teachers. So these are 6 different jumbled events that happened. The first event that happened is that there was a problem that was presented. The problem that was presented is Mr. Quelty was told that his dance moves were not up to par. So this is going to be the problem. I want you to decide what the rest of the events are. So this is the research of the problem. Where are we specifying the whole population before we decide to pick a sample? And go forth and try and match up these events to these points in the flowchart. And that's going to be your job for when I see you next in class. All right. Thanks, guys.